So at our last conference in Dallas in 2016, we gave an update of where we were at with our registry. We had about 225 families that had filled it out, and so we're just going to give an update from there and any new data that we found from it. It was started in April of 2015, and it helps us to figure out, to learn more about Pitt Hopkins. It helps us to connect with families. It helps us to understand, and one big thing that we've got from it is what medications have worked and medications that haven't worked and that sort of thing. So it's been really helpful, the information that we have. And we have about 330 families now. And so I'm just going to go through the data that we have found. It's split 50-50. I think we all know Pitt Hopkins doesn't favor one gender over the other. So this is the age of the kids when the parents filled it out. We do ask the families to go and update once a year, but we're special needs parents and we don't always get around to doing that. But this is the age, and you can see that it's kind of skewed to one side. There's a lot more younger children diagnosed at this time. It's getting more and more, but...
That's current age, Jess. I calculated after birthdays.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
You're awesome. So that's the current age they are now. Thank you, Diane. And for our foundation, this is kind of cool that we have this reach. We're an international foundation and we try to reach everywhere in the world, and to have nearly 43% of our registry filled out by families from other countries in the U.S. is pretty awesome. And you can see 29 different countries, so that's pretty cool for us. And the age of diagnosis, again, I think last year it was there was not quite as few young. It was maybe like 3 or 4 year olds more. Now people are getting diagnosed earlier. Doctors are seeing the signs and doing genetic testing. We're finding these things out. I feel like all the time we're getting families come to us and say, I have a 1-year-old or 2-year-old diagnosed, and so that, a lot younger. And so back to the age slide, keep that in mind as we're going through this, because some of the things, maybe their kid's only 3 years old when they fill it out, and so maybe these things haven't happened yet, and that's why we ask them to fill it out once a year so we can capture that as we go each year. You can see the split. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard to read, but the red is deletion diagnosis. The orangish yellow are mutations, and the yellow is, and if they don't know if it's a deletion or a mutation. And then there's also Pitt Hopkins like 1 and 2, and undiagnosed or clinical diagnosis. So this is an interesting one. We found that as our registry has gotten bigger, that this number seems to go down, and we're not sure why. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit of why we think that why it may be 24% here, and some other studies that have happened have shown a higher percentage. But it's interesting to note that maybe it's not quite as high as we thought. And some medications that families shared that have been used, not necessarily helpful. I can't remember who it was that spoke on Keppra being not a great drug to use. There are families that have tried it and they shared with us that maybe that wasn't the best drug. There were some adverse reactions to that. Depakote, Lamictal, phenobarbital, trileptal, Onfi, and clonazepam were the most often used. And for families that are writing down these medicines, I'm going to share this so you'll have that information. This is no shocker. In fact, I think I said this last time, but I really want to know what that 24% are doing that their kid doesn't have constipation, because it's just such an issue for our kids. And some medications that are being used, Dulcolax, Miralax, Senna, magnesium citrate, probiotics, and diet restrictions such as dairy-free, gluten-free, that sort of thing. And Audrey's giving a really great poop talk tomorrow, so you'll get more information on this. Apnea and hyperventilation. 66% said no, 34% said yes. Might have to do with the age, kind of with the seizures. Maybe they haven't developed them yet when we're capturing this information. But it's interesting to know. And another thing, I'm kind of going at this a little backwards, but we're launching a new registry, and so this was part of the reason, because we're like, apnea and hyperventilation are really two separate things that our kids are dealing with, and we kind of had it lumped into one. So now we've broken it down into, is it apnea, is it hyperventilation, where do they fall in that, like how long are the apnea spells lasting, that sort of thing. Just to gather more information, because this obviously leads to questions more than answers. I'm not sure how to pronounce acetazolamide. Did I get it right? GABA, CBD oil, and Topamax were some of the medications being used. Do you think that your child has an emotional, behavioral, or anxiety issue with how the question was worded? It's hard to really tell with our kids sometimes what anxiety looks like. Actually, not just with Pitt Hopkins people, I think just people in general, that can be hard to diagnose. So this is another one that we've asked more specific questions in our new registry to get more details, because we kind of, just from our parent feedback on like our support groups, we think that this is actually probably higher. And amantadine is probably the number one drug that people have said has worked really well. Dipeperon, Prozac, Risperdal, Lexapro, Lorazepam, and Zoloft are some other ones that people are reporting that they've used. I think this goes back to the age thing. Younger children, for instance, my son is walking now, he's 13, but he didn't walk till he was 5 or 6. Depending on at what age you are filling this out, it's kind of hard to tell. That's something that we're hoping to gather a little more information on the new registry as well. Pretty much we took all the things that we were like, we want to know more about that, and we added questions and made it a little bit clearer for families. Yeah?
Sorry to interrupt. The medication is gold, from the research point of view. It has lots of applications. Do you understand, or is there questions about who's prescribing that? Is it a GP? Is it a neurologist? Is it a child psychiatrist?
Usually a combination of all three, but I just wanted to give a caveat on that. Amantadine has worked great, but those medications that were listed, I think this is important for parents too, they're not necessarily the medications that are best for our kids. They're the medications that the parents reported their kids were using. So, for instance, we see a lot of parents try the SSRIs because practitioners, especially GPs, who most of our families have, are more willing to prescribe them. But in more cases than not, we see paradoxical effects with SSRIs. So they're not things that we want to prescribe necessarily.
Yeah.
But having that little bit of additional medication.
Yeah, absolutely.
For other reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll take note of that. Thank you. And then this is the age of the families that reported that their children were walking independently. And then I want to thank the families that took the time to fill out the registry. It's really important to us, and it helps us so much. So thank you very much. Like I said, we are launching a new registry. We're partnering with CORD, which is the Coordination of Rare Diseases at Sanford. They have this really wonderful program where they partner with organizations like ours and help create free registries for families, and they have helped us. That we've got IRB approval, which was something that somebody suggested us at the last conference, so that was great. And so we'll be able to publish information when we gather all of that. It has a easier system so that the researchers, you guys can go and contact them, and they will send you de-identified information pretty much at any time that you need it. So if you're working on something and you want to know some information about the questions, you can just request it. They'll check with us, and then you're good to go. So that's kind of a nice little feature, and it's just more comprehensive. Like I said about the seizures and the breathing, and it just, as we came up with questions, we realized we really needed more information, and so this really helps us to gather more information. It's a new platform, so unfortunately, and I'm really sorry, families, we weren't able to, because it's IRB approved, we weren't able to transfer the data over. So you'll have to go, and I beg you please to do this, to go and fill it out again. It takes like 45 minutes. It's 45 minutes to an hour. It's not bad at all. So please, we ask that you do that. And it's launching today on our website, so you can check that out if you have some spare time and check it out. All right, that's it. Thank you guys.